Cancun, Mexico. I am enjoying a little bit of honeymoon, but there's always work to be done. So we're here doing top 10 thoughts from week number 7 of the NFL season. And I got a couple good ones, got a couple little ones. There's a lot of buys this week, so not a ton of games to get through, but there was some key takeaways. There's been a shift with some of these bad teams to becoming middling teams that are going to continue to build on the season. There's been some good teams that have choked and not looked good down the stretch, and maybe there'll be some coaching situations to come afloat over the next few weeks. But first, if you'd like to, please click that like button, click subscribe if you would. I would gladly appreciate that. Here on YouTube, if you are listening on podcast, please remember to leave a 5-star review on the old Spotify. We got to get that thing up to over 100 reviews. We only got like 35 right now. So if you would please go on over there and please click that 5-star review. That would be greatly appreciated. Otherwise, click like and subscribe here on YouTube. Let's start out with the top 10 thoughts. Thought number 10 comes to us via the Denver Broncos. Now, the Denver Broncos are of course, not sitting in a great situation right now, near the bottom, or actually at 2-5 right now, below the Patriots and below the Chargers. They have this rookie wide receiver by the name of Marvin Mims, who we've yet to see really take a meaningful role in this offense. But this weekend, he was third on the team in routes run, 45%, ahead of Lil Jordan Humphrey, ahead of Brandon Johnson, something I didn't think was going to take him 7 weeks to do, but he did it. And Cortland Sutton finished with 94% and Jerry Jeudy 84%. Neither of these guys have been traded yet, though the trade deadline is looming. Marvin Mims is up to third on the team in routes run. I think he had 14 in this game particularly. I want to see this continue to build. I'm wondering what is going on really behind the scenes. I know he had a soft tissue before the season started in his leg, and maybe that's continuing to bug him. Maybe that just disabled him the ability to learn the playbook completely, get reps in during the preseason, and that just kind of put him behind the 8 ball. That's usually things that we find out near the end of the season or going into the next. Also, I want to say, if you're listening along on YouTube, please let me know if the internet connection is slow at all. I am obviously down in Mexico, not using the best internet, but we're here. Number 9, the Jahmyr Gibbs buy window has officially closed. It's officially shut. I hope I'm saying this in my book. I would personally, I was not trading Jahmyr Gibbs. I was the one vouching for people not to trade him away and to trust the process and believe in the stud that we know is as Jahmyr Gibbs. And everyone's like, well, Cody, we saw the DeAndre Swift thing unfold, and, he kept getting hurt, and the team was just, not utilizing him, and they put Jamal Williams in, and I don't want to fall back into that same trap. And I was like, that's not the trap you're going to fall into, because Jahmyr Gibbs is a different player. I know DeAndre Swift has the abilities to play across the field in the slot, out of the back, to do all those things. But he's not Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs is on a different level than DeAndre Swift. He's been healthier throughout his entire college career. And when you get to the NFL, Jahmyr Gibbs has shown he can already do it between the line of scrimmage, between the tackles, and on the outside, and in the slot. He ended this game this week as the running back 3 in fantasy football. He had 10 targets, 11 rush attempts, 60 rushing yards. He averaged 6 yards per carry. Coming off, we're missing a week of injury. Well, he missed 5 and 6, right? 2 weeks of injury. And they needed him. David Montgomery was out. Jahmyr Gibbs comes into that spot. It's like Craig Reynolds. It's Devon Exigbo. Mo Ibrahim had like a hip injury. And they're like, no, we need Jahmyr. We need the rookie. We need you to be healthy. We need you to be on the field. And he came in, played 62 snaps, 86%, 11 carries, averaged 6 yards per carry, his best of the season. And then he took in 10 targets as well. Like, this is the Alvin Kamara comp coming to fruition before your eyes with this offensive line, with this football team. I know the game script was fantasy. It provoked fantasy points because they were down. So it was a bunch of dump offs to Jahmyr Gibbs, but it showed you that he could do it. And I don't think they're going to obviously be in games where he's going to need to do that, but it's more so proving to you, if the game script goes that way, Jahmyr Gibbs can pay off as well. Whereas in a game that they were winning 38-6, I think you would have seen, instead of 11 carries, you would have seen closer to 17 carries like we saw earlier in week 3 on just a 38% snap share. It's proving to you that the Detroit Lions love and trust Jahmyr Gibbs, despite what they may construe or say in the media. They still do love and appreciate Jahmyr Gibbs. So if you're able to buy him over the last 3-4 weeks, you're welcome. Thank you. I appreciate you. I love you because I did the same thing as much as I possibly could, which is only, I think, once or twice over the last couple weeks. Because it's Jahmyr Gibbs. He's a stud. Everybody knows that. So shout out to Fran. Shout out to Matt Cassie in the chat. I appreciate you guys tapping in here on the old YouTube. We appreciate that. Top 10 thoughts here on a beautiful Tuesday. I know I'm a day late and $1 short, but hey, that's what happens when you're on a honeymoon. Number 8, Kendrick Bourne is what Juju Smith-Schuster was expected to be. In the close games this year for the New England Patriots in weeks 1, 2, and 3, you can pull it up and you can see that in that stretch, they lost to the Eagles by 5. They lost to the Dolphins by 7. They beat the Jets by 5. In those 3 games, he had 25 targets. He averaged 8 targets per game, Kendrick Bourne did. The next 2 games against Dallas and New Orleans, they got dusted, 38-3, 34-0. And in those 2 games, he averaged 4.5 targets per game. Over the last 2 games against the Raiders and the Buffalo Bills, they lost by 4 to the Raiders. They beat the Bills by 4. He's averaged, again, 8 targets per game. He finished as wide receiver 9, wide receiver 10, did Kendrick Bourne. It's showing you, or it's showing Bill Belichick or the New England Patriots, that they need to utilize Kendrick Bourne. And also you're seeing the growth of DeMario Pop Douglas, the rookie out of Liberty. Opportunities are needed for both of these guys. When the offense runs through these guys and the game script is set up perfectly for Mac Jones to get the ball out to these players, it benefits them. 17 targets for Kendrick Bourne in the last 2 weeks. Like I said, finished as wide receiver 9, wide receiver 10. Pop Douglas as well had 5 targets in this game. This is what the New England Patriots need. I'm not saying the Patriots are going to be good, but they surprised the world. They shocked the world. They beat the Bills, right? They lost to the Dolphins. They beat the Jets. They beat the Bills. They're currently 2-1 in their division. They get the Dolphins this week in Miami, of course. They lost by 7 at home. I'm assuming it's not going to go great because Miami just got handed a loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. But we'll talk about the Miami Dolphins here in just a minute. Kendrick Bourne, though, being what Juju was supposed to be in this offense, Juju, of course, being banged up. They said before the season that there was an injury in his knees and his knees were ready to blow. And we just have not seen anything near what we used to see out of Juju Smith-Schuster. So that's number 8. Number 7 goes to a whole position, and that whole position is going to be the rookie tight ends. The rookie tight ends have become the rookie tight ends have unlocked something that we've been looking for a few years now. They're the class to end all be all, right? They've given us depth. They've given us opportunity, and I think that's going to continue to grow as the years go on, right? Over the course of the next 3 years, we're really going to see the benefits of this particular draft class that we talked about coming in, being a prolific one at that. So currently, as we sit, Sam Laporta is the tight end 3 in all of fantasy football in the season. We have Dalton Kincaid at tight end 29, Luke Musgrave, tight end 30, Andrew Ogletree, tight end 35, Michael Mayer, tight end 37. That's just on the season. Now, I haven't even talked about just like the last 3 weeks. The last 4 weeks particularly, guys like Sam Laporta, Michael Mayer, Luke Musgrave, and then again this week, Dalton Kincaid. These 4 guys particularly are really what's going to evolve the tight end position and allow us to have a little more depth on a yearly basis, because you already see, like, we have George Kittle, we have Mark Andrews, we have Kelsey, we have Goddard, we have Waller, and guys like Dalton Schultz, guys like Cole Kmet, are guys just like tickling, right? And I also forgot to mention TJ Hawkinson in there, but guys that are just like tickling the edge of the ability to play them on a weekly basis. Evan Ingram's also in there as well, but Kyle Pitts is one that, he's only 23 years old. He should be almost included in a class like this one where there's a new depth coming, if that makes sense. It's Kincaid, it's Musgrave, it's Mayer, Pitts is in there, Laporta, 5 new dudes essentially over the last couple of years that are going to allow this tight end position to continue to grow, because Kelsey still got 3-4 years left in him, obviously. Mark Andrews looks like he has 5+. Goddard has 5+. Kittle has 5+. This class is going to give us depth that we never knew we expected, or that we did know we needed it, but it's here to actually prove that it's something. It's coming to fruition, because there's the years of pain and suffering at tight end where it's like, oh man, I got to play Daniel Bellinger. It's like, you don't have to do that anymore. We're starting to actually get guys that are breaking out as rookies, and I think that's a big takeaway, just that Every week now for the last month, we've seen a guy like Musgrave have 7 targets, Mayer break out against the Patriots. Now this last week, Dawson Knox goes down and Kincaid gets his opportunity. And of course, what Laporta has done this entire season. So that's takeaway number 7. Number 6 goes to the Tennessee Titans, the Minnesota Vikings, and the Arizona Cardinals. And some of you are going to say, why do we care about these, inept franchises that don't really matter? And the point of that more so is for the draft, for the playoffs, for the season. It's because the Tennessee Titans just traded away Kevin Byard, which, if you remember, on this roster, they have Derrick Henry, they have DeAndre Hopkins, and they have a strong defensive line. Now, they drafted a lot of defensive backs that they want to get on the field and have been banged up. So I think that opens up opportunities on this defensive side of the football. But the Tennessee Titans schedule is not brutal. It's not tough as the season wanes. And I think there's an opportunity for Tennessee to not quit. I don't think that it's in their DNA. And this is the takeaway for number 6. This is number 6 top 10 thought of the week, is that Tennessee, Minnesota, and Arizona are not just going to bend the knee and say, you know what, we're going to tank. We're going to tank for Drake May. We're going to tank for Caleb Williams. We want to go get Marv. We want to go get Olufashinu. These 3 teams I don't think are just going to tank. Arizona may do it because they don't have the talent to win. But they're not going to just bend the knee and say, you know what, we're just going to go in here and we're just going to give up. They're 1-6 right now, and there's a real possibility they end it with 2 wins. But the point more so is they're going to be in a lot of football games, especially if Kyler comes back. If Kyler comes back, which I'm betting on right now, based on what we've heard and seen, I would bet on Kyler Murray coming back in the near, I would bet on Kyler Murray coming back sooner rather than later, because of what we've seen, what we've heard. And I think there's also this itch inside of him that's like, yo, if I don't come back healthy, there's a real opportunity for this team to really suck. And we saw what happened last year when you win a game in the last week or lose a game in the last week, and how that shift changes and which team gets the first pick and second pick. It matters a lot. If there's an opportunity where Arizona loses that final game and say the Bears or the Panthers win a game and Arizona vaults into that number 1 overall spot, guess what? Kyler Murray is going to be moving. And I'm not sure if Kyler Murray wants to move. So I think there's an opportunity for him to come back. You talk about Tennessee Titans. That's not in Vrabel's DNA to just lose, right? They're only a game behind the Houston Texans, who the Houston Texans are on they're the next team out of the playoffs right now. You look at Tennessee's schedule the remainder of the season: Atlanta this week, Pittsburgh, Tampa, Jacksonville, Carolina, Indianapolis. That's just the next 6 weeks. Nothing overly daunting, right? Jacksonville's been playing good of late. Pittsburgh just got a big win against the Rams. And then you have Miami, and then 2 divisional games: Houston, Seattle, Houston, and then Jacksonville. Jacksonville, if they beat Houston twice and then they get Jacksonville week 18 for the AFC South, whatever, or for a potential playoff spot, this is a team where the defensive side of the football is good enough that if the offense starts clicking, I wouldn't want to be betting against Mike Vrabel in this offense. And there's also been, I'll talk about this in a minute with the Tennessee Titans. It kind of goes off of them, but I don't think they're going to bend the knee. Minnesota as well. They've won the last 2 games. They haven't had Justin Jefferson. Kirk Cousins is playing for a contract. Hawkinson just got paid. This defensive side of the football has heard all the negative thoughts. I don't think any of these 3 teams are just going to bend over and go for the Caleb Williams tankathon thought or process throughout this entire draft or season. So I think that's a big takeaway. Is that I will say I openly was like, you know what, Minnesota should just tank and go for it. And, Drake May would be great in Minnesota, or Tennessee. They should just blow it up, trade Henry, trade Hopkins. But it's not in their DNA to do that. O'Connell's trying to establish a winning culture. Vrabel is not a loser. Vrabel's not going to just bend the knee to these guys. And Arizona, with a brand new coach, is not just trying to lose every football game. They're not going to openly do that. So I think there's opportunities for all 3 of these offenses. Now, number five comes off of that Tennessee one right there, and that is there was a little news break on Monday from Bussin' with the Boys. There was a mini one. Taylor Lewan, who's a former Tennessee Titan, obviously, he mentioned that Will Levis would get the start in Week 8 against the Atlanta Falcons. He said his source was a 50-50 source, but all of his sources are in the building in Tennessee. So somebody said something, somebody leaked some thought, and it would make sense after what we saw from Malik Willis and his inability to feel pressure in the pocket against Baltimore when they were overseas there when Ryan Tannehill got hurt. So they had a bye week. So that would have given you either 2 weeks to plan with Malik Willis as your quarterback, or 2 weeks to plan putting Will Levis in that situation. So it sounds like via Taylor Lewan that Will Levis has been the guy that is getting plugged in as the QB1 coming out of this bye week. The question is, can Will Levis elevate the Tennessee Titans? Can he get the ball out to guys like Chig Okonkwo? Can he get the ball to areas for DeAndre Hopkins and Treylon Burks? And does that open up the back end enough to allow Derrick Henry to start get going, which we usually see the second half of the season. Derrick Henry gets hotter and hotter as the season goes on as far as the yards per touch basis goes. And of course, Tyjae Spears, like the utilization of Tyjae Spears, we talked about it last week on Top 10, that needs to rise. So I think that it's an interesting thought. Can Will Levis elevate what the Tennessee Titans have right now? Because as we know, a good quarterback, a competent quarterback, a higher-end quarterback rises all tides in a team and only allows the defense to get better when they're not on the field as much and they're not dependent on as much as the Tennessee Titans defense has been dependent on this year. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Number 4 goes to the Miami Dolphins. Again, something we talked about just a few short weeks ago when they played the Buffalo Bills and got walked like a dog 48-20. And then, of course, they bounce back and get 2 big wins. And the media is back on the Miami Dolphins because they scored 31 against the Giants and 42 against the Carolina Panthers before a Sunday night football letdown against the Philadelphia Eagles, 31-17. And the problem is, and the question is, Miami's got arguably the best offense we've ever seen just because of the pure talent, the pure ability. They've been comped to the greatest show on turf by many people, even though they play on grass, whatever. I'm not saying that that's what they are, but it's more so the team aspect, right? The team is not on that level. The team is not quite there. The team needs more on the defensive side of the football. When you look at the output that the Miami Dolphins have given you, they haven't been able to stop very many people that have been competent. You see the Buffalo Bills, they scored 48 on them. The Los Angeles Chargers in week 1 scored 36-34 football game, and that when the Panthers even scored 21 on these guys. And then the Eagles, of course, scored 31, allowing A.J. Brown, again, another 130-yard performance in the air, as well as Dallas Goedert to do his thing as well. Hurts almost thrown for 280 yards on 31 pass attempts. Like that, you have to be able to slow people down if you're going to. I guess that does work against itself, is being a fast offense is also going to make your defense get behind the 8 ball. Your defense is going to be on the field a lot if you're scoring fast. And what you see in the time of possession this past week was 36-23 in favor of the Philadelphia Eagles. They were up on the Miami Dolphins. I want to look back and see the time of possession for that game back in week 4 against the Dolphins. Against the Buffalo Bills. It was 30-29 in favor of the Bills, and they won 48-20 in that one. So my big question, my big worry is, can they get Jalen Ramsey back? Can they get Xavier Howard back? Because those are obviously 2 mega pieces, 2 healthy all-pro cornerbacks in the NFL. Of course, they were all pros, a couple of years ago. But if you can get, 80% of that back, that's high-end competency at the cornerback position that can slow down guys like A.J. Brown, like Stephon Diggs in games that you need to win and that you aren't only depending on Tua and Tyreek and, Mostert and Achane and guys like that. But the Dolphins defense needs help. This is not going to be a team that makes it past the divisional round of the playoffs if they do not shore up this defense. It's not just all about scoring points. You have to be able to stop your opponents on a weekly basis. So there's that. Again, if you are tuning in, tapping in here on YouTube, please click the like button, click subscribe. And if you are on podcast, please click that 5-star on Spotify. It takes about 3.5 seconds, and we do appreciate each and every one of you guys. The number 3 top 10 thought of the week goes to Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara is a guy, I saw him in person on Thursday night, right? I was down in New Orleans. I flew into New Orleans on Wednesday. On Thursday night, me and my wife, Maddie Kiwoom and his wife, and then Dario from Player Profiler showed up as well. We went to the Thursday night football game, Jacksonville against the New Orleans Saints. And this game was putrid for the entire first half. It was a blowout. Jacksonville looked pretty much like what we've seen from Jacksonville the last couple of weeks. They've gotten hot and they've been dominant. And at the point in this game, it was 17-6. It was 24-9 after an interception touchdown by Foye Oluokun. And I was like, this Jacksonville team this is a polar opposite flip to what we saw earlier this year. And then the shift changed. Like, the stadium was dead. People were leaving. And then New Orleans just started ripping off targets to Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara, target. They get the ball down the field, got a little Taysom Hill, got some Michael Thomas, and all of a sudden it's 24-24 with 6 minutes left in the football game. And I was like, whoa. And I looked up, and Kamara had 14 targets. Chris Olave had 15 targets. And it was unreal to see this comeback. And again, the thought here is Alvin Kamara, but I just had to review this game because it was a hell of a game that, we had a couple beers and we were sitting back in, the middle of the third quarter. And we're like, well, this thing's over. We just get to sit back. We had watch Travis Etienne run the football out. He's going to hit his over prop, which was like 62.5. And that didn't happen. He hit 53 and they just stopped running the football with him. So that was cool. And Jacksonville came back and won with Christian Kirk and a late touchdown. But the thought was Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara has been absolutely sick. He's been absolutely lethal since coming back from his suspension. Now, before the season, he was drafted as the running back 23. I believe his ADP was about 62 or 63. And drafted as running back 23 going into the season. Before week 7, so week 1 through 6, he was the running back 23 in all of fantasy football. For those of you keeping count at home, he did not play in week 1, 2, or 3. He played in week 4, 5, 6. In 3 weeks, he was running back 23 in all of the season. Now, you count week 7, he's now running back 16 on the season, missing the first 3 games. It is ridiculous. He's now number 1 in the NFL in receptions, I believe, at the running back position. I didn't even double check that. I'm just going to go off my head with that because a week ago, he was number 3 behind Bijan, and Bijan didn't do a jack diddly twat. So that's unfortunate. But Alvin Kamara is a unicorn. That's the thought here. And he's running back 3 since coming back in week 4. Week 4, when he came back from that suspension, 4, 5, 6, 7, just those 4 weeks, Alvin Kamara is running back 3 on the season, 6 points behind Travis Etienne and 13 behind McCaffrey. We know McCaffrey is the fantasy GOAT, but Kamara is the fantasy unicorn because the opportunities run through Alvin Kamara, whereas in San Francisco, there's opportunities for everybody else in this offense. Christian McCaffrey just knows how to find the end zone. That's the big thing. But Alvin Kamara, what he's shown us from a target perspective, these last 4 weeks of him playing has been ridiculous. So Alvin Kamara is a unicorn, and he was one of the thought was Michael Thomas is the best value in all of fantasy football. That's what Nick Underhill told us. And Michael Thomas has been a good value in fantasy football, but nothing near what Alvin Kamara has given us since he's been back. Number 2 thought of the week goes to the Los Angeles Chargers. Not only will Brandon Staley lose his job in Los Angeles, but the question is should Tom Telesco also lose his job as the general manager of the Los Angeles Chargers? Now, just under Staley's tenure, this is his 3rd season. They're 21-19. They finished 3rd, 2nd, and now they're in 3rd currently this year in the AFC. And I do believe they are at the bottom of the AFC side of things as far as the playoffs go. 2-4. They're a half game ahead of New England and Denver, which is saying a ton, right? They're in the Tennessee, New England, Denver conversation, which is sad. And they have Herbert and they have Keenan Allen. They lost Mike Williams, but they had all the talent on defense that was expected to be what was going to elevate and help them this year. And all they've done is piss the season away. They get beat by 14 this week by the Kansas City Chiefs. The opportunities have been there all season, and they haven't done anything with them. They lost the Dolphins by 2. They lost the Tennessee Titans by 3. They beat the Vikings on a close game. They beat the Raiders in a close game. They lose to the Cowboys last week. They lose to the Chiefs this week. Now they get the Bears, Jets, Lions, Packers the next 4. My thought is, how long before Brandon Staley loses his job? Do they give him the rest of the season? Or if they get to a point where they're 3-6, 4-8, is that when they pull the plug and they say, we're done. We're done with this. This experience is over with. They haven't been able to do anything. They've burnt up Herbert's, rookie contract. They've torched all the upside and all the ability they had to divert cash to other positions in this team, in this offense. Eckler's now at the end. Mike Williams keeps getting hurt. He's near the end. Keenan Allen's aging. Like they've almost shut this entire door on themselves with Herbert as the quarterback in their fourth season now. And when you go back and look at Tom Telesco's tenure, it started back in 2013. He had Phillip Rivers as quarterback. They went to the playoffs. They lost the divisional round. They didn't go again until 2018. They lost in the divisional round, and then they didn't go to the playoffs again until 2022. So they went to playoffs three times in 10 years with Tom Telesco as the general manager. And why I bring up Tom Telesco and not just Brandon Staley is, well, Brandon Staley, obviously, we get the analytics side of things where the analytics have not been in his favor in any way, shape, or form for the majority of his tenure here. It's almost like I would venture to guess for Chargers fans, he's burnt them too many times to where they're upset with him as well. But again, I haven't talked to Chargers fans. I should probably reach out to a couple that I do know, but I haven't. But when you look at the draft classes over the last couple of years, what the opportunities were for guys like the Chargers. Did you watch the game last night? That's the question, right? Did you watch Jordan Addison do what Jordan Addison did on Monday Night Football when he was pressed into the top spot for the Vikings? 2 touchdowns, over 100 yards, command the offense, look like, Odell, look like Jefferson, like be in that role, like do the thing. What he did last night, you will not see from Quentin Johnston for the remainder of this. Like, you will not get that total out of the rest of the season for Quentin Johnston. Zay Flowers has already shown to you what he could do in the Baltimore offense. Both of these guys went pick 22 and 23 right after the Chargers picked Quentin Johnston at pick 21 overall. Also, I mean, if you're not looking at wide receivers, Dalton Kincaid was there. Kincaid did more this weekend than Quentin Johnston has done all season. So the question remains, not only does Brandon Staley lose his job, but should Tom Telesco also lose his job for his ineptitude in drafts? And you can go back to all the drafts, right? They've hit on some good guys. They've hit on Zion Johnson, offensive line, Rashawn Slater, like offensive lineman in round 1. Yes, Rashawn Slater. Asante Samuels has been good. Hitting Joshua Palmer in the 3rd round has been good. Justin Herbert, of course, was good, but that's not where you build the depth of your team. That's where you build the talent, and that's where I think that they've went wrong, is that they do have an immense amount of talent. They do have, the Derwin Jameses, the Justin Herberts, they had the Mike Williamses, but it's about drafting throughout the rest of the draft. Desmond King, who they drafted back in 2017, isn't even on the roster anymore. Rashawn Jenkins isn't on the roster anymore. A number of guys that you can go through here for that we've seen get opportunities in offenses and even look fine with the Chargers. Kazir White, like guys that you would expect to be brought along in an offense to become depth pieces, like Cameron Bynum, who you watched last night for the Vikings, was a guy that they drafted 3 years ago, and they've brought him along to be that safety, to be next to Harrison Smith and potentially take over as the back-end leader. He did it. Like, that's the point. That's the point of progressing an offense and drafting the correct players for depth and building the team, and that's something that we just haven't seen. We've seen Telesco take running backs in round 1 in Melvin Gordon, and then get guys like Austin Eckler in free agency, and then miss on guys like Joshua Kelly and Justin Jackson and Larry Roundtree, Isaiah Spiller, year after year, and the team just hasn't come together. So that's my big thought, is not only does Brandon Staley lose his job, but I also think Tom Telesco should lose his job as well for the Chargers. The number one thought is a pretty baseline one. If you watch any football, is Kansas City the best team in football? Now, for me, a month ago, from what I saw from the 49ers, I thought the 49ers were on the verge of hitting legendary status. Legendary status means New England, 85 Bears, 72 Dolphins, like legendary status. Like, I thought they had that upside and that ability with the trend that they were on, where they were just dominating teams they should have dominated. And then they got the Cowboys game where they dominated the Cowboys. And then October 15th happens, and they lose to a not good Cleveland Browns team without Deshaun Watson, no Nick Chubb, 19-17. And then they get 8 days to go to Minnesota and play a team that's really not hot, but they do have a sack leader in the NFL in Danielle Hunter. And they're coming off of a close win over the Bears. And they're not really that good of a football team. No Justin Jefferson. Niners had Charvarius Ward. Yes, they were missing Debo and Trent Williams, but we've seen them win football games without either of those guys. And they lose. The question is, the Chiefs, is that the best team in football right now? And I talked about it 2 weeks ago with Isaiah Pacheco and this defense being run first and the defense being a top 5 defense in football. It's a different look, right? You hear the Super Bowl hangover, and the two teams you look up at right now, and you're like, who's the two best teams in football? It's the Eagles and it's the Chiefs. Eagles lost by 5 or 6 to the Jets 2 weeks ago. A lot of injuries on both sides of the ball. They've looked good against everybody else most of the last month. Kansas City doesn't really have a pure number one. Rashee Rice running the third most routes right now for the Chiefs. He should be taking over that role. I would say down the stretch, it's going to look better and better for Rashee Rice. But they have Travis Kelce. As long as Taylor Swift is in the freaking stadium, he's going to dominate. This defense is unstoppable, though. This defense looks fantastic. Are the Chiefs the best team in football? And is the Eagles number 2? We could be looking at a repeat Super Bowl, right? Or we could be looking at Week 11, Monday Night Football, Chiefs and Eagles. Week 11, Chiefs and Eagles, Monday Night Football in Kansas City. That is the beginning of a gauntlet of a stretch for the Philadelphia Eagles. This week they get Washington, then they get Dallas, a bye week, and then they go to Kansas City on Monday night. They host Buffalo in Week 12. They host San Fran Week 13. They go to Dallas Week 14, to Seattle Week 15. Then they get Giants, Arizona Giants. Brutal stretch there for the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Kansas City Chiefs, on the other hand, had the Broncos this week, and then a Germany game against the Dolphins, bye week, Eagles. So they're both coming off byes to play each other Monday Night Football. And then the stretch does ease up a little bit for the Chiefs with the Raiders, Packers, Bills, Patriots, Raiders, Bengals, Chargers. I think Kansas City might be the best team in football again. I've seen that thought come across Twitter quite a bit, I guess, today and yesterday. But it's weird to even conceptualize that with what you view the roster as being. It's Kelce, we get that, but it's also like MVS is running some of the most routes. Rashee Rice is third on the team in routes, and this is a defensive-first football team. That still scored 31 this week against the Chargers. So I expect a big, again, the Chiefs only won 19-18 against the Broncos 2 weeks ago. I expect a much different result this next weekend against the Broncos in Denver. I expect a much different result, a stamp almost for Kansas City to make before they head out to Germany to play the Dolphins. Chiefs are the best football team in the NFL. Eagles are number 2. Again, back-to-back years. The Super Bowl hangover does not exist. And I think they're both going to be heading back to the Super Bowl. That's it. That's the show. What's up, everybody in the chat? I appreciate you guys all. What do we got going on here? Kipsy says the Patriots are dialing up more plays for Bourne, quick hitters. Just hopefully they can kickstart Mac up. Yeah, that's kind of the thought. That's what they should be doing and probably should have been doing that all along. Chef Lanabi, is it worth to trade Deontay Johnson and Andrews for Kelce? I mean, sure, but I probably wouldn't do it. I think Deontay's going to be fine. If he stays healthy, he's going to be fine for you. So I probably wouldn't do it, but I do get it. If you have plenty of depth at wide receiver, sure. Would you trade Adam Thielen for Christian Kirk, Geno, and Logan Thomas? Would Adam Thielen for Christian Kirk, Geno Smith, and Logan Thomas be a fair trade? Yeah, I mean, Geno and Logan Thomas don't really do much for me. If you're talking about Thielen for Kirk, I think I'd prefer Thielen. But I could see if you potentially need the depth on the other side, I would get that. But I think I'd prefer Thielen out of this trade. Let's just get Burks and Hopkins on the field at the same time, please. Yes, exactly. That's the point. Get them in the same field at the same time with Henry and see what we can actually cook up here in Tennessee. Rank Mostert, Saquon, Breece, JT from most valuable to least rest of season, and would you trade any of them 1-for-1 for Bijan? I would say JT, Breece, Mostert, Saquon, and I would trade Saquon for Bijan. I think that's it. I think I would trade. I mean, Mostert's a borderline. Mostert's on a torrent pace, though. Matt Cassidy, thank you. Appreciate you. Wedding was actually in December 31st. But I don't know, man. We should have done the honeymoon in January, but that was Senior Bowl season. You know what it was. And now middle of the NFL season, we decided to do this damn thing. So we're doing the damn thing, and I'll be back home at the end of the week. Actually, I'm not. I'm going to go to Austin next to go see Alex. So shout out. Kip C, congrats, brother. Kick up the feet and have a drink. That's what I'm doing. My wife's right there out the beach, out the water. I'm going to go out there here in about 20 minutes. I'm going to go hang out with her. Have me a little pina colada, maybe. Matt Cassidy, what do we do with Roshan and Kendra Miller? Hold if we can down the stretch. You know what, man? I just want to see Roshan be healthy. I am so distraught. You know, we are getting fully cucked by Roshan's injuries here. We saw him beat out Deonta Foreman the first couple weeks of the season, and now it's just full-blown cucked by Deonta Foreman, which is fine because Deonta looks good, but it just makes you sit back and go, damn, man, this opportunity was literally laid up for Roshan, and he's out. But I'm holding Roshan for now. That was at the New Orleans Saints game on Thursday, and they kept pushing out Jamal Williams, and he did not look very efficient. So, but they paid him. So I guess my thought with that would be if they do not move Jamal in the next 2 weeks on the trade deadline, I'd probably have to maybe look a different direction for Kendra. But Roshan, just because of the injuries right now in Chicago, I'm holding him, and I want to see him. If he's now again, if he gets a third week in a row, I don't know if he's cleared concussion protocol or not yet. But if he goes another week and he doesn't play, then he becomes that guy. But right now, I'm probably good on the Kendra thing because of Jamal. Applied literature. Hey, Cody, do you feel like Mayer can become startable tight end this year with Jacoby and Devontae running game over in Las Vegas? I do think there's opportunities for him. You're going to need more touchdowns dependence. You're going to need more touchdowns to depend on him. But I think you're looking at guys like Devontae Adams, Jacoby being dependable down in that range as well as Josh Jacobs. It's going to be tougher. You're going to be a hit-miss, week in and week out type of thing for Mayer, I think, rest of season. I appreciate you. Kevo, do I trade for Jamar Chase and Jonathan Taylor? Do I trade for Jamar Chase and Jonathan Taylor? You give up Tony Pollard, Devontae Adams, and Amari Cooper. Yeah, I'm cool. I like Chase and Taylor in that deal. Happy for Deontay finally getting healthy and having good fun things. But, man, I hate it. Exactly. That's exactly how I feel about it. You know, Alex has talked about it. Deontay's a great guy. He's known him as a Texas guy for years. And Foreman's always been a great dude. It's just more about the Roshan thing. It's not about the hate on Deontay. It's more about sad for Roshan because of the concussion stuff. Matt Cassidy, appreciate you. Last question, thoughts on what to do with Pittman? Sell high for Olave or Higgins? Yeah, I would. I'm cool with that, 100%. If you can get Olave for Pittman, or I would definitely take Olave for Pittman. Higgins is borderline for me just because of the injuries, but I'd be looking in that Olave range. Yeah, I'd take Olave 100%. Anyways, appreciate you guys all. Roster Watch, top 10 thoughts. I'm Cody Carpentier. You can find me on Twitter at Carpentier NFL. Alex and the Trashman will be live in a few short hours to give you that waiver wire jazz. So stay tuned in, stay tapped in, go grab some lunch, take a shit, and be right back because Alex and Trashman are going to bring you the garbage. Appreciate you guys. Doses.